These are the days that you really, if you're into politics and you're into, and listen, we've all had our disagreements with the Supreme Court. We just talked about it the other day in that ruling, in some of the individual justices and their decision making, and as we complain about that decision, about the words and what the words mean, today's decision is exactly the opposite of that. It was all about exactly what the words mean, the plain language of the 14th Amendment. In this landmark day for the U.S. Supreme Court and the United States, as this decision comes down and the justices bar the use of racial preferences in college admissions. What an interesting day, number one, to read as much as I could of the decision, and it is a doozy of 270 pages long. Justice Thomas's concurrence is what I could read of it, and some of the highlights I saw is unbelievable. It is just fire, and the direct aim that they take at the three liberal justices, and I have to say, even Chief Justice John Roberts, the direct take, he withering language to Justice Sotomayor and the other liberals on the court. As the court today basically said that using race in admissions, in the way that schools like Harvard and UNC have been blatantly doing, is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. And that, of course, is the amendment passed in the wake of the Civil War that abolished slavery and established what most of us have always believed in, and that is a colorblind constitution, which leads to, hopefully, a colorblind society. And the majority opinion today issued by John Roberts, 6-3 decision, the three liberal justices, we'll get to that in a second, underscoring the Constitution, barring discrimination by race under all circumstances, even posing it as a supposed remedy for past discrimination. And what Harvard and UNC were doing was clearly engaging in outward admissions-based outright racism in against Asians, and basically doing this racial balancing. And they make a point in the decision, if you look at the last number of years and you break out Asians, African Americans, and I forget how they broke it out, but if you look at the numbers, they're literally the exact same. They are perfectly balanced over the last 10 years. Now, the liberal justices, by the way, are fine with that in their opinions, in their dissents today. They think the use of race in administration, race in admissions, and racial discrimination is fine and should go on forever, quite frankly. And of course, that is all based on what the left feels and what they were all screaming about today. And that is that we live in a systemically racist society, which we've talked about a lot on this show over the last couple years. Their idea is that this nation is systemically racist, inherently systemically racist, and therefore the only way to amend that is with more discrimination, of course, by government.
Yes. More racism, but actually directed at a couple particular skin colors and groups because, I don't know, they tend to study more. I don't know.
The Democrat Party does not argue for a colorblind society today, as I watch them on mainstream media. They argue for the resegregation of America. You're already seeing it. You now have black-only graduations. You have only, you're seeing it. That is their position.
Yeah, it's dumbfounded.
They argue not to embrace a colorblind meritocracy. They are not for that. They argue against judging you as an individual. They don't even want to think of you as an individual human being. You are not. You are just part of some box to be put in, some racial group to be a part of. That is their default position, and that is what you heard all day today in their arguments. And what was weird is that even in Michelle Obama's piece she put out, they actually, in a weird way, make the case for why this decision was made. I was one of the few black students on my campus, and I was proud of getting into such a respected school. I knew I'd worked hard for it, but still, now listen to this sentence. I sometimes wondered if people thought I got there because of affirmative action. It was the shadow that students like me couldn't shake.
There you go.
That's the point of this decision today. And I saw this from multiple people trying to argue against it, but in some way actually affirming the decision. That's exactly what we're fighting against, that feeling. That you shouldn't feel like you're there, like Ketanji Brown Jackson. Of course, she's going to argue against it. We know why she's there in the position she's in. It's just like the press secretary. How many times have I said it? There is not a qualification you can point to that gives her that job or lets her stay in that job, other than the color of her skin and that she checks a couple other boxes.
You can say the same about the vice president, the current one.
Yes, you can.
I mean, Joe Biden made it patently obvious because he said it. I'm picking a woman of color, a black woman. He said it. That's all that was his requirement. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how stupid you are, didn't matter. Anything you did in your life didn't matter. He was focused on the color of the skin. That was the deciding factor.
Justice Harlan wrote in Plessy versus Ferguson, our Constitution is colorblind and neither knows nor tolerates classes among citizens.